As Eric said, I played on 3 national championship football teams for North Dakota State Bison. How many people are football fans out here, down here in the SEC land? All right, so we played schools like Georgia Southern and Sam Houston State. That was the league that I played in. So a lot of fun. And then after college, I as Eric said, I started my own company. Myself and another partner, we started an energy services company, and then we joined Ecova. And as you heard, Ecova is a total energy and sustainability management company. And then with the largest part of our operation is around the concept of outsourced utility bill payment. And so we deliver value in the outsourced accounts payable aspect of the business, as well as then all the utility data collection. And then most recently, we were just purchased by GDF Suez. So we are now we're a part of a very large global company. We are part of a division called Cofly. And so Cofly USA is the division that we are, it's Ecova, and then a part of the international company Cofly. And that's going to allow us to really expand our footprint globally, as we all know. So thinking about today and what I could speak about, coming from the perspective that I had run my own company, and also in terms of my position at Ecova, I was thinking about what perspective do I have on this industry, and the one piece that I decided to go with was the concept of driving EBITDA. Really thinking about and talking about what do CFOs think about, what are they concerned about, and how does our world and what we do and all the things we've talked about today mean to CFOs and the business cases and those types of things. Then I also want, and where that gets into then is the concepts of cost volatility, a blueprint for success, and then supply side and demand side. Many of the same messages that you've heard throughout the day are wrapped within my overall presentation also. Specifically, the surveys that we have done, cost, 76%, that's the #1 issue that's driving cost savings, is what people are looking for. The issue of expecting energy prices to increase, and as I talked about, or I will talk about, the issue of volatility. It not only is it an issue of increasing, but it's the issue of volatility. And how, from a CFO perspective, are we able to budget, are we able to forecast in context of all the volatility that we experience in the marketplace? And then water, as was talked about throughout the day, the rising cost of water is significant. The scarcity of the resource, everything that's happening within the water systems, replacements of the overall infrastructure, tremendous increases in the cost of water. And looking forward, that's going to become even more. What's interesting about that on the water front, when people talk about maybe 4,000 utilities or 6,000 utilities, try like 25,000 to 30,000 when you think about water. When you think about municipalities and the whole bit, the game is way bigger and way more diverse than 4, 5, 6,000 when you include all of that. So all of the challenges that we know exist. From a CFO perspective, I hear this just all the time, predictability. They don't want to be too high and they don't want to be too low. Even though it's great to come in under budget, CFOs want predictability. And so how can we, within our area of energy, drive predictability? And then the areas of concern, the price volatility, we talked about that, the regulatory environment. The one I wanted to point out was the issue of mysteriously evolving technologies. CFOs do not get what we do. They're very, very smart people. They know numbers inside and out. They have their MBAs, they're very, very intelligent. All we are is a black box and an expense on the P&L. So the reason why that's important is you have to know your audience. And when you're working with your finance organization, you need to make sure that you're a chameleon and you are involving them in the way they need to be involved. And so at a later point in my discussion, I'll reinforce the fact that you got to have a finance partner. As you're working through all of the things we're talking about, you need to go find yourself a long-term partner on the finance side of the organization that can help be your inside salesperson inside that finance organization to help get these things done. The arena of volatility, as we had talked about, as everybody's well aware of, you have your weather drives it, natural gas storage, drought, energy supply constraints. All of these issues are all very real, very important, and they drive the volatility that we have to deal with every day. The issue of our strategy, though, is what I want to kind of move into, is how do we deal with this? How do we work with our CFOs? And the green arrows, obviously the strategies are very complex, but the questions that I ask to you, the audience, is around the contract, particularly on the supply side, is do you know who your decision makers are? Who is your constituency inside the organization that you need to understand their risk profile? I'll talk about that more in detail a little bit later, but the concept of risk management, deregulated energy procurement, managing volatility, it all falls very much in line with risk management 101. And so a big piece of that is to think about who is your constituency that you need to have alignment with around what their risk tolerances are. How does the risk that you're going to take on or not take on impact their world? The arena of operating budgets, the acceptable risk tolerances, data capture, all of those aspects of it, efficiencies and ROI, our corporate responsibility goals. I am happy to say that Ecova ourselves is a 1,400 person company, and we have issued our corporate responsibility report. We have an annual report that we have gone through the entire process of collecting our data, bringing together the entire report, and we'll be continuing to do that on an annual basis. It is the first time you do it, it is very difficult because you have to establish how you're going to do it, where you're going to get all your information, and then once you have your mechanisms up and running, it's much more repeatable. But it's been a very great exercise for us as a business, especially working within the services industry that we are in. So around the concept of specifically the program, what type of program within your businesses do you need to develop in order to meet the needs of your organization with an eye to your finance partners? We view it as the 5 keystones to the overall planning process, the data, people, infrastructure, your marketing and reporting, and then your continual improvement. All aspects that I think have been discussed throughout the day-to-day, but that issue of marketing and reporting, that's the one I'd like to hit on. Again, as you're trying to be successful in your businesses and then within your own companies, your ability to basically market internally, to show your success stories, share what's positive, create momentum, create energy around your ideas and your beliefs. You need to do that, and so that issue of marketing internally, as well as then working with your marketing departments externally, as was talked about, how do you really drive that value from the end customers in terms of the improvements that you're making. Partnering with marketing is really important also. They've got another group that has great talent, that doesn't understand what we do, but they really understand their customer base and how to communicate and do things in a way that me as an electrical engineer or as an operations guy, I just don't have that flair. That's not where my head goes. But man, if I partner with somebody with that kind of marketing skill set and help them simplify my message and get to the core, impacting and using the right words that really mean something to the audience, very, very important to promoting and then therefore succeeding in this entire game of energy management. Specifically then I want to drive into the concepts of risk assessment and risk tolerance. When thinking about the supply side of our business in particular, the issue of savings is crucial, and we all know it, but that issue of predictability. How do you manage and how do you meet your budgets and your forecasts? As we would, here in the States, we have the regulated markets and your deregulated markets. And the regulated markets need to be thought about just as much as the deregulated markets do when it comes to risk management and risk tolerance. The reason for that is those prices do change. They change based on maybe weather factors. They change on fuel cost adjustment factors. There are various things that cause those prices to change, not as dramatically as a deregulated contract, but still also has to be thought about in terms of your total risk management and thinking through your entire portfolio. So when we think about risk management, we go through a process of actually creating a risk register. Much like if you're a private investor, most of us own, how many of us own some stocks somewhere? How many of us have met with some type of financial advisor? They walk you through a process of understanding your risk, right? They force you to go through this process of asking you a question. Nobody wants to answer them. Believe me, I don't want to answer them either, right? But they talk about what's your long-term goal? How much are you willing to, if the market moves by this much, would you maintain your course, or are you going to jump off course at the first time the market moves? Same thing in terms of risk management around your energy portfolio. You need to understand these aspects of your company's risk strategy, and most importantly, your internal constituencies. What is their risk tolerance? What are they going to be willing to live with if the market moves by 5%, 8%, 10%? Are they going to be jumping out of their chair and then in your office and phones ringing and emergencies are happening all over the place? Or are they going to be right there with you because you guys had a consistent strategy, you knew where it was going in? And so, of course, we have to have data, the risk tolerances, but it all has to be organized in the concept of a risk register so that it can be a documented plan that you deliver on. I made the comment about identifying your stakeholders and their particular risk impacts. You have to understand what the C-suite's willing to tolerate. You have to understand what finance is willing to tolerate. Your real estate organizations have their own perception of risk, and depending on who they are, what their decision-making authority is within the company, you need to have them on board. As many have found out, legal, you wouldn't think that you have to manage their risk tolerances until you put contracts in front of them and they start asking all kinds of questions that have nothing to do with the legal aspect of the contract. It's like, we've already gone through this with finance. Well, let me just ask a few more questions. So get them in the game early, understand what their risk items are so that you can make your processes internally more efficient. Also, the concept of benchmarking risk tolerance. When you organize your risk assessment and you have it in a way that is formal and identifiable, you can then go to your other vertical peers, other peers in the industry, and talk about risk in a consistent manner. And so that notion of both understanding your internal risk tolerances and risk assessments, and then doing it in such a way that you can work with your peers and understand where you fit in terms of the market is a very valuable way of working through the risk tolerances. And then just in terms of risk, everything can go all the way from the budget certainty, or you always want is it pay no more than the market, and therefore you're willing to take on lots of risk, lots of volatility, or do you want to have as much budget certainty as possible, in which case you're into long-term fixed prices and working through it from that standpoint, or is it somewhere in the middle? And then how can you really understand and model what your value at risk is, so when markets change, what impact does that have on your total portfolio? And this is a good graph that really represents that concept of understanding your portfolio and thinking about what it really means, both regulated and deregulated. So what you need to understand is what markets are you in. You need to understand how much that spend is in those markets and how volatile those individual markets are. So, Texas, from an electricity perspective, although the market is electricity in Texas is very volatile, if you only have small spend there, obviously you don't need to think about that as much as if, 30% of your spend is in Texas. So by looking at both the size of the spend as well as where it's located, and this is particularly important in the natural gas arena, but also electricity, is those regulated states. Those regulated states, again, the price will move on you, and your price per commodity will change, and you need to model that in, as well as the deregulated and the regulated both need to be modeled. And so at Ecova, we have tools and various dashboards to provide that type of measurement and communication. You got to communicate what your plan is. You then have to show how you are performing against your plan, and then at the end of the year, how did you do? We had, at Ecova, we've got an entire integrated web-based platform that provides that type of insight and management of the tools. But whether you're using Ecova or whether you're using one of the other solutions out there, that concept of having a plan and measuring your success against the plan is crucial as you move through. The other side of the meter, the demand side, that also has to have a plan, or it has to be a part of your plan. Driving down consumption, the areas we've already talked about, many people have here today. Distributed generation, your building retrofits, all of those areas that classic demand side management needs to come into. We just need to make sure that all of that is addressed in the overall plan that you're working on. This piece, though, is one thing that I did want to hit on. It was kind of mentioned earlier in the day, and I think it's worth reinforcing. You need to tailor your plan for that local market. I believe it was the McDonald's gentleman made the comment about having a portfolio of solutions and allowing your local operators to select the solutions that are right for them. What this points out is the concept of what type of retrofits you're going to do is very dependent on where your buildings are located. I'm from Minnesota, so the concept of heating systems and all of that is very important in the north, whereas in the south, it's not as dramatic. Your cooling systems are much more important in the south. So as you think about what types of savings you're going to achieve, you need to make sure you localize that to the weather and to the systems for that respective market, not just go with one size fits all across your entire portfolio of properties. And then reducing the cost on the demand side, again, we've been talking about it, but gathering and normalizing the data, crucial. And then you have to identify your outliers, you need to do your benchmarking, prioritizing your projects, the financial plans and proposals, and then clearly you got to benchmark and verify. Make sure you utilize your internal marketing departments so that you can celebrate those successes and people can know the value that you're driving. Engaging the people, it is definitely about behavioral change. I thought that was a great call out, that you can push out actionable insight and push out the actions. But if they are not executed on, if they are not implemented, you don't get your results. And so your program has to be human-oriented around making sure those people are driving those changes. And then risk management, understanding that so that you understand how your spend plays across the entire company and what tolerances your organization is willing to live with. And then your demand side utility savings, driving down consumption, obviously saves dollars, saves carbon footprints and that whole thing. So again, like I said, I'm standing between us and drinks. So I wanted to hit on all the same core messages that I think the rest of the organization or the rest of the group here had hit on throughout the day. I would like to thank Sanjay and Eric and all of Urginet. You guys have done a great job. Been a very, very nice conference. Can we give them a round of applause for all the hard work they've done? Great job. Brought together all kinds of varieties of people. So really, really appreciate that. So. Questions, I think I'm stuck with.
I hope there's some more questions, but we did get a couple earlier that I can ask you, Marty. You've probably been asked this a bunch, so you have well-prepared remarks, I'm sure, but what is the effect of the GDF Suez acquisition on what's happening with Ecova?
Okay, yeah, so the effect of GDF acquisition on Ecova, probably the most important effect that it's going to have is it's going to provide us the framework to really deliver a global solution. Everybody that's close in this marketplace or maybe knows Ecova as a competitor or as a partner, one of our things that we needed to overcome was our ability to really offer a true global solution. With this acquisition, we are going to be able to utilize those assets and those resources across the globe to be able to take what we've already been doing for a large number of the Fortune 500 and all those types of clients to provide them a true globally integrated solution.
Okay, that's great. And then the other question that was posted is, what's new in bill payment? Are there new things going on in the area of bill payment? Yeah,
I think the area of innovation around bill payment Certainly UrgentNet plays into it. The ability to get electronic data is absolutely positively the #1 thing that is being pushed extremely hard. We certainly recognize that. Ecova is doing everything we can to achieve that. Whether it's direct data feeds, whether it's really self-learning OCR systems is another very, very important aspect. And then, so that's really around the data collection piece is where innovation is being pushed very hard. And then it's really the issue of having anomalies kicked and what investigation needs to be done to ensure data accuracy as well as to drive savings. That's another arena where Ecova continues to innovate, continues to stay very focused so that we can deliver the greatest value. And that's within bill pay. Of course, I can get long-winded and give you the additional sales speech, but I'll stop there.
Okay, great. Well, what other questions are there for Marty? Yeah.
What are some of the things you do to help CFOs manage that volatility in the regulated markets? What are some of the things you guys do to help them with that piece?
So in the regulated markets, I would say you can't so much control it as one, explain it, and then two, be aware to provide them forewarning when it's going to happen. So for example, as we saw last year in early 14, natural gas prices were spiking, and that was going to make its way down through your natural gas bills. And so if even in the regulated markets, you're going to get a fuel cost adjustment. Knowing that that's going to come, forewarning the CFO in the form of some type of forecasting it would be my recommendation on how best to deal with that. And then in your total risk, knowing that that type of energy move could impact your total spend increase, you should include that as one of your variables in your overall risk management plan, not thinking that it's a flat fixed cost. Yes, sir. So we do not have a true API environment at this time, but we do have electronic data interactions with lots of different companies in the marketplace. Knowing that it is a broad marketplace and those types of things happen, and with a large client base, data needs to be shared in lots of different places. So we don't have any specific API solutions at this time. An opportunity for us, for sure, but we do provide data interchanges. Yes?
What levers are Ecova trying to use to break out of their account management team? So having a history of expensive data management, how are you pricing out of that team and growing throughout other organizations?
So that the market would view us as a broader player in the energy marketplace as compared to just bill pay? Okay, so the question was, Ecova is pretty much well known for being an outsourced accounts payable organization, a utility bill pay organization, but how do we break out of just that paradigm and share our broader message of our broader offering and the broader value that we provide? Really, one, our branding. We work very hard. We've gone through a number of name changes, as the marketplace knows, and now that we're at Ecova,